Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Wraith, and today I'm going to be going over, well, I don't know if I should say this, because it's my army. Well, I'll do it anyway. How to beat the Return of the King Legendary Legion. That's right, I'm going to tell you how to beat them, because there are ways. I know quite a few, especially newer players, are struggling with the ghosties, and I can see why. They're absolutely solid, usually around defense 7, defense 8 if you're playing them right. They attack your courage, which is insane. They're -1 to your courage if you're near the King of the Dead. You've got Aragorn, and he's just Aragorn, plus he's a 6-inch banner for the ghosts. They got resistance to magic with their heralds. They can have the King of the Dead, who obviously does the -1 courage, along with giving having up to like as much might as he wants with the heralds, using their will as might for him to call heroic actions. So he could have 7 might essentially. He can't alter rolls with those extra bits of might, but he can still call heroic combats, heroic strikes, whatever he has access to. How do you deal with them? And I'm going to be going off the basis of a normal army, okay? So, if you're playing any kind of wacky armies, it doesn't apply. If you're playing a monster army, I mean, your monsters, you should be fine. Like, most monsters have okay courage unless you're like a cave troll, and in which case you outfight them and hope you roll a 6. Isn't that the case for most fights with monsters? I'm only joking, of course. So, the first thing that you want to do when you're fighting the ghosty boys is try and buff your courage in any way you can. If you have access to a warhorn, and not a lot of people use warhorns, and I get why, they're really expensive, but it's +1 courage army wide. And I like that because it doesn't just help with ghosts, which it certainly does. It helps with break tests, terror tests. It helps with everything. So if you're playing standard orcs who are like courage 3, they'll go up to courage 4. Okay? And the benefits of that is if you go to an event, there's a good chance you're going to see the Legendary Legion. Especially smaller events, a lot of people like to use them. And the difference between courage 3 and courage 4 is you're suddenly defense 4. So a regular ghost, goes from wounding you on 4s to wounding you on 5s. And that's not too dissimilar of what it would be anyway if you're playing standard orcs. If you're playing armies of the good, or good armies, if you're playing elves or whatever, you can go up to like courage 5, courage 6, whatever. So it suddenly becomes like obsolete. Okay, attack my courage or attack my armor, I don't care. That's one way around it. If you have access to a warhorn, bring one. Okay? They're not always the best, but I like them. So it's up to you completely. All of this is my opinion. The second thing is, make sure if you can, if it says this warrior can have a sword or an axe or whatever, your pick, I will always try and go for an axe or a pick. Okay? Because I absolutely love Piercing Strike. Piercing Strike basically increases your strength by 1, but you go down defense by D3. Doesn't sound like a good trade-off. But against Army of the Dead, you increase your strength and lower your defense. But they don't attack your defense, do they? So there is no downside to Piercing Strike. And if you got a 2-handed axe and you Piercing Strike, you're suddenly +1 strength, +1 to wound, with no downside against these ghosts. Absolutely phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, I love stab. Stab is really good, especially if it's helped me a couple of times. Not a lot, it's killed more of my orcs than it's helped, but meh, never mind. So, we've got that. And that's one thing that probably most players won't remind you of if they're playing Army of the Dead. If you see a guy with an axe, they're probably not going to go, oh mate, do you want a piercing strike with that bloke? No. They don't want you to, because there's no downside to doing it. There's no downside whatsoever. So always remember to Piercing Strike if you have axes. If you want to convert your models to have axes, do it. I've done it. I love axes. I love Piercing Strike. Going from strength 3, strength 4, or if you got like Morannon orcs, try and give them axes. Because, I mean, you only defense 5, defense 6, so they're pretty high armor, so you could roll a 1 and go from defense 6 with a shield to defense 5. Who cares? Okay, so this is only, I mean, I am thinking of fighting ghosts, so if you really don't want to Piercing Strike in other games, it's not worth it, but I like Piercing Strike, because you go up to strength 5 then, and that hurts a hell of a lot more. Just saying. Okay, an orc at strength 5 is pretty crazy. So that's the other tip I've got for you. The last one is you need troops, and by troops I mean you just want a lot more models. Well, not a lot. You want to outnumber the ghosts quite a bit, because the ghosts are rather elite, being 14 points for the model. Your Morannon Orc is 7 points without a shield, 8 points with a shield, and they're not the cheapest option. Like obviously orcs or goblins are cheaper. If you outnumber them, there's a good chance you can start trapping them, and once you envelop their force, it's going to be a lot harder for them to, back out. You start trapping ghosts, you start killing ghosts. The other tactic you can use is try to isolate. So by that I mean, if you get a chance to cut off the enemy's force, so you can round up maybe 4 or 5 ghosts and separate them from the main host, they're going to be a lot easier to deal with, because there's a lot less buffs going on, because they're quite a bubble army. They want to be near Aragorn, they want to be near the King of the Dead. So if you can cut them off from that, however way you can, then do it. The last thing I've got to say is, if you get a chance to, try and kill the King of the Dead. If you kill the King of the Dead, you will actually start seeing the benefits of bringing that Warhorn, because you'll be +1 courage. So with that, with Piercing Strike, you also want anything with +1 to wound. So two-handed weapons, cavalry charges with lances, anything like that. It's because then they'll just melt, and strength 5 or higher will just really start hurting these guys. You will need to roll 5s rather than 6s to wound them if they're defense 7. Still needing 6s if they're defense 8, however. But if you're strength 3 model and you've got an axe, you'll need 6s by force to wound a defense 8 model. But if you piercing strike, it drops it down to 6s, going up to strength 4. So it's massive. You want strength 4 or higher against these guys, because strength 3 just is really hard to hurt them. And God forbid your strength 2. Yeah. But they're the main ways of defeating these guys. You've got to outmaneuver them, and then when it gets down to it, when you're playing scenarios, play the scenario. So if you've got way more guys, or you're way quicker than your opponent who's using this Legendary Legion, which you'll probably have more guys easily, and it's not hard to be quicker unless there's loads of water around, you can just start grabbing the objectives towards the end game. You can force them into fights they don't want to be in. Yeah, you've got to be cunning. You can't just smash into them and hope for the best, okay? Because it doesn't usually work. It doesn't usually work, because they've got much higher defense than most people, and they've got the killing power as well, because they attack your courage. So they're my little tips and tricks on how to beat the Army of the Dead. Well, the Return of the King Legendary Legion. Obviously, when you kill Aragorn, that's a leader kill, so he's a high priority target. But as soon as you start putting down ghosts, you'll see. You'll see. If you try these tactics out, you'll see you'll have a much better chance against these guys. Because smashing generic orcs into them will not work. It's quite funny when they go up against Iron Hills, because instead of attacking their defense, they're fighting their courage, which is still courage 4, but it's quite funny, because Iron Hills is all about defense and toughness and things like that. So when you negate that, it's horrible. Hopefully this has been helpful, and let me know down in the comment section below if it has been helpful, if you've used it to defeat that person who keeps bringing these damn ghosts. I do my best to give you the best advice I can, but of course I'm no god at the game. I can only go off my experience and the experience of the few players who I do talk to who are competitive. So they're more than happy to let me know on how to beat maybe factions they've come across, or their own factions, because we're all here to build this community, which is a fantastic community. We're all here to help each other out, and if I can help you out on this channel, I will do in any way, shape or form that I can. And if this video gets a fair amount of likes, I'm more than happy to keep doing how to beat kind of videos, covering things like Angmar, Moria, different lists, Rivendell, Night List, anything. Let me know down in the comment section down below which factions or type of army list that you have been struggling with, and I will get on it straight away. So without further ado, like if you enjoyed it, And if you're feeling especially saintly today, do consider a subscribe. But if you don't do either of those things, that's fine. I still hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.